Everyone, we are tracking dangerous Hurricane Melissa. It is a historic day across the Caribbean with landfall on Jamaica. Good afternoon. I'm 10 Tampa Bay Chief Meteorologist Bobby Deskins. I'm in Tampa. Beneath me, you see Lou Turner, Chief Meteorologist up in Jacksonville, First Coast News. And of course, as always on Tuesdays, we have Dr. Rick Knabb from the Weather Channel. Guys, it's been a historic day. We're pretty close to records here with this hurricane that made landfall. Let's start right now with the actual satellite of the eye moving over top of the western tip, if you will, of Jamaica. It made landfall around 1 o'clock this afternoon. I always want to throw the 9 in there. 892 millibars, 185 mile per hour winds. You can see the eye has now closed in. Obviously, the structure has gone down because it's moved over top of those mountains on the western side of Jamaica. And it's the center itself is about ready to move offshore and out towards Cuba as we go into later tonight and into tomorrow. Let's start today's discussion with Dr. Rick Knabb. Where do we start? Sir, we've got a lot. We've got the tide for the strongest landfall. Well, what else do we have?
Yeah, it's a terrifying day, and there are other countries and island areas at risk, and there are still hazards going on in Jamaica. It is far from over, and of course, the long recovery will only just be beginning tonight and tomorrow. The 892 millibar central pressure at landfall, I mean, it's staggering, ties the 1935 Labor Day hurricane for the third lowest pressure. And the 185 mile per hour winds ties for the strongest landfall ever in the Atlantic Basin in our records. And it's the first Cat 5 landfall since Dorian in 2019. And this does bring back shades of Dorian, meaning a slow moving Cat 5 over an island location. But Jamaica, you got to add in the mountains to it. Strongest ever hurricane to strike Jamaica, and here's where Melissa stands with pressure. Wilma was the lowest at 882. That was not when it was making landfall. Gilbert, that actually struck Jamaica, but then subsequently farther west had a pressure of 888, and the Labor Day hurricane and Melissa making landfall with pressure of 892, and Rita was at 895. So this is rare territory, and it is a different kind of impact that we're getting in western Jamaica than what's happening in eastern Jamaica. Not that there aren't impacts there with especially the rainfall, landslide potential, storm surge, but it definitely is the western part. And the reason I say it's not over yet is because with Montego Bay in this area, they're still getting potentially devastating hurricane force winds, but now the storm surge from the northwest is going to begin with the wave action, and the winds will be unimpeded off the Caribbean Sea. So we still have a ways to go with this, and this is the zone that probably got tremendous storm surge, but we probably still had quite a bit farther to the east, and it was continuously on a strengthening trend over the last few days, all the way up until landfall. So look at the remarkable intensification that we had Saturday into Sunday, but that was only day 2 of tremendous intensification, and then it happened again. And last night, we started to think, well, maybe at some point it'll go through an internal structural change, eyewall replacement cycle or something. There was no indication of that happening, and it just continued to strengthen all the way up until landfall. So the Hurricane Center is providing these hourly updates, but any moment now we'll get the full 5 p.m. advisory and the new track and intensity forecast, as Jamaica still has bad weather on the backside of this to contend with. But then, guys, we have Cuba, the Southeast Bahamas, and Bermuda in the path of Melissa, because just because it has gone over Jamaica does not mean it's going to weaken below major hurricane status. We're expecting a major hurricane to strike Cuba and close to it going over the Bahamas, guys.
Yeah, and then Cuba would be later tonight and during the day tomorrow, and then on Wednesday night into Thursday, really Wednesday night, into the Turks and Caicos and the Southeast Bahamas there. Now, Lou, I don't even know how to say a fortunate thing here, but the hurricane winds went out about 30 miles from the center, 30, 35. So that's about a 70-mile swath of hurricane force winds. Those highest winds around the eye, they were right there around the center. So what areas you thinking were really the worst hit there?
Well, yeah, I mean, you think that Black River area, that Treasure Beach area, the way it's oriented, it's going to be fascinating to see the videos that ultimately come out of this. Videos that, of course, we've had the conversations about in our newsrooms and together here as meteorologists. You know, we got to find the stuff that's real. You know, so much AI-generated content is coming out. And it kind of, if you just allow me to kind of, Dr. Knabb, I had a question for you from the Weather Channel perspective. You know, we get great video from folks who go into these situations, and I know there's a great deal of responsibility on your shoulders from the meteorologists and reporters that you guys send. I mean, and I've been so buried in my own computer and a lot of content that we've been doing here, so I haven't been able to like copiously watch, you know what I mean? But what do you tell you guys that actually go out in the field? What are kind of the best practices for something that we haven't seen before? Because I mean, 892, 185 mile an hour winds. We don't get this. And I'm just curious how you prepare folks to be out in the field for it, to gather the best content and to get the best information out to the public.
Well, safety is first, not just for the people that we are communicating to, but our folks as well. And we don't have someone in Jamaica right now, and this is only the beginning of the story, though. There's going to be a lot of stories to tell going forward, and all of us need to, take a beat when we see an image, and consider the source and consider the context. And that's one thing we as meteorologists collectively can do. Is there's a lot you can glean from an image by not just looking at the image or the information that's coming in, but where did it come from? When, who was the source, and what's the meteorological context? Was that even physically possible at that time and at that location? So, there's like if somebody were to show an image of tremendous storm surge from the northeastern shore of Jamaica, that's probably not going to happen in this particular scenario. We know the South Shore and the northwestern shore, Montego Bay. Those are the areas that we're anticipating storm surge. So. And if you see, reports of absolute wind devastation on the eastern part of Jamaica, that's the more unlikely place for that to happen. So there are a lot of ways that we can vet information, and it will take some time. We all have to be very patient in a situation like this to wait for information to come out because communication is down, and the first thing that folks there will need to be doing is search and rescue, because there may be people in life-threatening situations. That's the first priority for folks in Jamaica, is to help those who have been affected and whose lives are in danger maybe at this very moment. It's a scary, terrifying day. Yeah,
need to get the experts in there once this moves away for that search and rescue. Lou?
Bobby, I wanted to ask you, so, kind of making this a philosophical conversation a little bit when we're dealing with something that's going to be in textbooks, moving forward, and things, when we're old and gray, kind of looking back at and teaching with. So many times you hear, at least in Florida, people who don't want to leave with a hurricane bearing down. Oh, I've been through it before. I've seen something. You've never seen anything like this, and I fear, for Jamaicans, and I have a coworker whose father lives in Jamaica, and fortunately he's in Kingston, so obviously they're going to be dealing with impacts, but more tropical storm kind of impacts, and then ultimately 3-4 days down the line, probably some flooding coming out of the Blue Mountain Range, which 7,400 feet in elevation. That's going to be an issue for them. But you on that side of the state, I mean, in recent memory, of course, there's been Milton and Helene. Do you hear stories from people that say, okay, we rode this out, but that's something I'll never, ever do again? Because I kind of consistently hear that. I've been through this storm. I'm going to ride this out. I'm tough. I'm a Floridian. But once you do it, and once you truly go through it, it's one of those life-changing things. It's like, I'll never do that again.
Yeah. Well, we had that with Irma that blew the water out in the Fort Myers area. And then when Ian was coming, it blew the water in. And folks said, well, we didn't know that was going to happen, So the understanding of the general public of storm surge, and then just basically even what we had with Helene. heeding the forecast of 5 to 8 foot storm surge almost from the very beginning of that storm. That's what we were seeing forecast, and that's what bared out. So I understand, we'll say 4 to 5 foot of surge, we end up with 2 to 3. So I can understand the public the way they are, but I tell you what, the forecasting is getting better and better. And speaking of forecasting, let's move forward now with this, Dr. Knabb. So Jamaica's a small island. Yes, some of the mountains are pretty tall, but it went over the western side of the mountain, so it's only knocked down so much in intensity, and it's going to be back out over warm water, and now it's headed to Cuba, right?
Yes, and there's really warm water and still not very strong wind shear between Jamaica and Cuba, and we may very well, even on the infrared satellite imagery, start to see that eye start to come back out, and it will have some opportunity to regather some of its organization, and there will still be plenty left of it after it leaves the coast of Jamaica. And so we're expecting a major hurricane landfall here somewhere in southeastern Cuba. And a lot of the same sorts of things will happen here with storm surge coming in, rainfall, floods and landslides trying to go the other way, and then the devastating winds in a mountainous environment. And again, a relatively short stay over land, and it's still going to be a major hurricane or close to it when it comes off of Cuba, and it's still going to be a slow weakening process. So this, I would say, is another one of those major hurricane warnings, and this is close to it for the southeastern Bahamas. And just like Jamaica, not every part of the island is going to be affected the same way because of Melissa coming ashore on the western side of the island. The impacts are going to be different on different parts of the island. And I always want to respect the folks in the Bahamas by not saying this hurricane is going to hit the Bahamas. Well, it's not going to hit the northwestern Bahamas. Right. It's the southeastern and central Bahamas that are in the hurricane warning, and because that's a very long island chain. So got to be specific there. But here's one problem. Even after the center of Melissa leaves Jamaica, we're still going to have strong winds and heavy rains on the south side of it. Hurricanes are not just a point. It doesn't start at landfall and end when it leaves the island. The weather is going to be bad. You're still going to have heavy rain bands over Jamaica well into this evening. And in Cuba, it will start well before the landfall of the eye. But here's where you're going to have all those water problems on the right-hand side, the surge and the heavy rainfall. And then it's tomorrow morning that it leaves Cuba, and tomorrow during the day in the afternoon is the bad period of time for the Bahamas. So we could be talking about feet of rain in Cuba as well, and surge. So we'll have to see how much surge has happened in Kingston and areas farther to the west where the surge is probably even worse. And again, right now is when we're getting probably the beginning of the strongest surge into the Montego Bay area, but it could be double-digit surge flooding in southeastern Cuba, and the Bahamas being so low-lying could get significant storm surge out of this as well. And again, the timing, if I'm in the southeastern Bahamas, I want to go to bed tonight in my safe place, because by the time you wake up tomorrow morning, the tropical storm force winds are starting, and you don't want to be doing any last minute preparations in the morning. And then you stay sheltered all night tonight and all day tomorrow, because you got to wait for that hurricane to go by during the day. And then Thursday morning, we can kind of take a breath in those areas. But then, of course, we have to worry about what could happen in Bermuda. So, guys, the next up is Cuba with more devastating wind and water impacts.
And as you mentioned, surge is a little bit different depending on the landscape of the land too, right? It's a little bit higher there in parts of Cuba versus, as you mentioned, those southeast Bahamas are very low lying. Then Bermuda, of all places. I mean, Bermuda's been dodging these storms out there. The mainland U.S. has been fortunate so far this season with the Carolinas got skirted, but most of them have recurved. And so what are we thinking? 80, 85 mile per hour winds possible for Bermuda?
A Cat 1 or 2 hurricane. And again, just because it's a small island doesn't mean it can't get a direct impact. That is one of the possibilities. And the timing is for it to pass near or over Bermuda, late Thursday night. But the winds would start before that. So we have today and tomorrow to prepare in Bermuda. And of course, they've already been impacted this year. This is something they can handle with the infrastructure they have for this strength of storm, but the dangers are still there. And it's amazing how no matter what path the hurricanes have taken this year, they've always ended up going near over Bermuda on the way out.
Getting picked up, those troughs sitting in that Atlantic there. So one landfall so far in Jamaica. We'll get another one tonight and tomorrow morning, some time frame for Cuba. We could get at least one more, maybe two, depending on exactly how it tracks across the southeast Bahamas. And even then, Bermuda's still pretty close to it as well. So what would that be, 4 or 5 potential landfalls with this system? Obviously, it looks like it will get a little bit weaker. That would be the good news. Here's some of the wind that you can see now. And one other thing that happens when these storms start to weaken a little bit, the wind field will actually spread out a little bit. You'll see the number come down. It's now at 150 mile per hour winds, not 185 anymore. However, that wind field will spread out. And so now you'll have a larger storm with more tropical storm force winds. That'll go out a couple hundred miles type of thing, right? And then even the hurricane force winds will spread out just a little bit, although eventually those will start to come down. And I bring that up because that's going to affect more of Cuba because of that. Central and eastern Cuba, and Cuba will knock it down a little bit. And so now you're going to get a wide swath of tropical storm force winds that will eventually push up towards the southeast Bahamas and the Turks and Caicos. So Dr. Knabb was showing, I think I got it right here, those watches and warnings for that area. And they're basically including most of the central Bahamas. And as you mentioned, we like to point out Nassau is looking pretty good. Marsh Harbor, that had Dorian just sit right over top of them, was an incredible hurricane. They are okay as well. But as soon as you get down towards Clarence Town, especially in points to the south and the east, that's where we will see the most effect from this now. Storm surge in the Bahamas, real fast. We know we're thinking about 5 to 8 feet. Is that the number?
Yeah, that's correct. Because, yep, absolutely. The Hurricane Center puts storm surge forecast values in their advisory, and that's what these graphics that I've got up are representing. And because they're so low lying, it's relatively easy, even for a faster moving hurricane that's not as strong as what Jamaica and Cuba are going to get, to inundate some of these islands. And you got to add the heavy rainfall. So there will be water problems in the Bahamas, no doubt about it, in the southeastern, maybe central Bahamas.
Lou, what's it for the Florida coastline for us?
Yeah, it's a good question. You kind of looking ahead to the next few days here, and you mentioned that kind of parade of fronts. I'm going to stop this here at Thursday at noon as we take a look at our future casting and our in-house model that does a pretty good job and has done a pretty good job of late. But if you take a look on the left side of Melissa, that's the next front that's going to be crossing through Florida, bringing some of the coolest temperatures that we've had in 6-7 months. I mean, going back to early April even for us. But that front is our friend. It's been a parade of fronts that we have been watching come across the southeast steadily. And it's been that kind of a season as it shoves Melissa away. And then notice the wind barbs, those strong northwest winds coming in by Friday and into Saturday morning as well. We got big things happening. And obviously, it's Halloween for everybody. But up here in Jacksonville, we got Florida, Georgia, world's largest outdoor cocktail party, which I'm technically not supposed to say anymore. But everybody, if you know, you know. We've got that happening Saturday. Going to be very, very cool. That cool air coming in, helping shove Melissa away and making some pretty nice conditions for us as well. And I will say, kind of looking towards the future, Bobby and Dr. Knabb, other than Melissa, if you look at the National Hurricane Center map of what's being tracked over the next 7 days, I think we can kind of take a little comfort. Once we get through with this, at least over the next 7 days, things are a little calm.
Yeah, it does look to be a little bit quieter.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that the Climate Prediction Center did come out with their weekly update for weeks 2 and 3, and they are highlighting the Western Caribbean for maybe a 20% chance in the first week of November and the second week of November. And we've had Thanksgiving hurricanes in the Western Caribbean before, so that will be the area to continue to watch. But guys, I remember after Wilma came by in 2005, a big trough took it out. It was really cool in South Florida after that one too. So this is something that happens a lot in South Florida and the rest of Florida after hurricanes happen.
Yeah, it pulls down that cooler air. follow our socials. You need to help. Monetary donations really help going forward for the next several weeks.
Now, the First Coast's most accurate forecast from the First Coast News Weather Team, certified by Weather Rate, sponsored by AC Designs.
Welcome in, folks, and happy Tuesday to you. We want to thank Dr. Knabb, of course, Chief Meteorologist Bobby Deskins, and our own Chief Meteorologist Lewis Turner for the breakdown of Melissa. We want to bring it back a little bit closer to home here for the end of the stream here. Talk about our local forecast. We've got a lot of just kind of overcast, dreary-looking skies. We've been dealing with this off and on mist throughout the day here today. That will continue overnight tonight. Tomorrow morning, we're going to start off a little bit of some patchy mist and fog in some locations, but as the day wears on, a lot of those clouds will clear on out. We'll see a little bit more sunshine by the afternoon hours, and our high-res futurecast model also showing that. So by 11 a.m., that lunchtime an hour, much sunnier sky is going to be out there. Now, you'll notice by the time you get into the late evening, so more than likely after sunset tomorrow night, after you've cleaned up everything from dinner, there is going to be another front that swings on in. Now, it's going to be very, very quick moving, but it will bring us a very narrow line, about a window of about 2 hours to perhaps see some isolated to scattered showers tomorrow evening. So for the Jacksonville area, we're really thinking between about 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. tomorrow night. We have that chance for a very quick little blast of a few showers making their way on through. That will clear out then pretty much by midnight tomorrow night. And then much cooler, drier skies are going to be ushered in behind that front. The main thing this is really going to do, and this is a look at that cold front that I mentioned, narrow line of showers along with it. This is really what's going to pull in that much colder air for the end of this week and into the weekend. Kind of really just dragging cold air down from Canada, down from the northern plains and the Great Lakes and upper Midwest region, down toward the southeast, across southeast Georgia and northeast Florida. And we're really going to notice it much more so during the morning hours. So yeah, the afternoons, it is going to be cooler, low 70s for our highs, and we'll break it down a little bit for you here in a second. But it's really going to be those morning lows, and you'll notice here down from the low 50s tomorrow morning into the mid 40s for early morning temperatures on Friday morning, Saturday morning. Low 40s, that's for Jacksonville. And we'll show, some areas a little bit further west and north toward the Suwannee Valley, up across inland southeast Georgia and the Okefenokee. Some of you folks could see temperatures in the 30s. Yes, the 30s. I know it's a little hard to believe by early Saturday morning. So it might be a little bit too soon to show this, but we want to give you at least a little bit of an idea. Typically, when you first see that, first frost of the season or of the year, Waycross, Pierce County, you folks typically see it between about the 1st and the 10th of November. For areas a little bit closer to the Jacksonville metro, or let's say on the west sides of Jacksonville, 21st to 30th of November, and then typically for the 295 Beltway and further south down, including the south sides, Green Cove, Silverleaf, St. Augustine, across St. Johns County, Palatka even, it's likely going to be not until the first part of December. So we're still a little bit of ways from that, but it is just showing that those cooler, more winter-like temperatures are going to be headed our way here, over the next couple of weeks. But as for Thursday, after that front clears on out, it's going to be sunny, yes, but it's going to be just a very chilly, breezy day. Winds out of the northwest about 10 to 20 miles per hour. So although temperatures are going to be right around that 70-degree mark, 69 degrees for Jacksonville, that stiff northwest breeze is going to make things feel a few degrees cooler. So more than likely feeling like the mid-60s there on Thursday. Friday, cold start to the morning, mid-40s for Jacksonville, but plenty of sunshine by the afternoon. We warm up nicely then into the low 70s. So overall, it is going to be a very nice, picturesque fall-like end to the work week here across the First Coast. Let me drop. There we go. Well, let's talk a little bit about Friday night, because Halloween now is just a couple days away. For all the trick-or-treaters out there, just make sure you have the sweatshirts or, a jacket, packed in the car, or maybe your outfit or costume itself. Might be a good idea to have a couple layers with it. Try to stay a little bit warmer as you're perhaps heading out for trick-or-treating on Friday evening. Will it feel nice initially? Yes, but once that sun sets, temperature's going to drop down pretty quickly. They just tumbled right down the stairs. So 6 p.m. temperatures in the Jacksonville area, mid-60s. by 9, 10 p.m., we're already cooling down into the 50s. So just keep that in mind, whether you're down in St. Augustine or you're up in Waycross or Nahunta or Folkestone, wherever you may be. Friday night, trick-or-treaters, it is going to be a little bit chillier out there than some past Halloween nights that we have had here across the First Coast. And then I mentioned early Saturday morning, inland locations, really out towards the I-75 corridor and inland southeast Georgia. There will be some locations that do get down into the upper 30s. Modeling really showing most places right around that 40-degree mark, but I do think there will be some isolated pockets of some cooler temperatures there, at least in the morning hours. By the afternoon, great day for some football. We got the